All right. Hey guys, Sam back with you here on January 1st, mid morning here, and I had some other members interested in a look at Shift. Also, a coin I've not done before here, so there's a few things to look at. It's not unlike what the Nav coin that we just looked at. So you could certainly make a case here that we had a 5-wave structure that was technical that's now completed. So with the exception of this spike, it actually is quite technical. So if we work from our 2 here, where we would expect to see our 3 and our 4 relationship, so we come right to the 50 and then up, the algos get their target here. So there's definitely technical trading happening in here, but then we get after that, we get this complete collapse. And so even if I just pull from absolute low to high, we're well beyond the 786, but you could, technically, you still call this a 2-wave, and I just look at it as we're just restarting the whole thing here. So, yeah, you could make the case that's a 1. This is a very deep 2, but in terms of how we would go about trading it now, I don't know how much relevance this really has here. I wouldn't really factor that in. I've just got a new starting point here, and I'm looking for some structure within that here. Can we put together a reasonable risk reward given what we're seeing here? So clearly we've had some sort of an impulse, the retracement. Now we're moving back up. So let's go all the way down to the 1 hour. Have a look at it. So let me get it back in scale here. So here's that point I've wicked off here after the long sell-off here, and then we eventually stabilize here and we base and we get a new starting point. So if I look here now, just to be consistent here, I'm going to come over to CoinGecko, and you see here, as I always tell you, look for a coin of 50 or higher. So at 49 was certainly close enough to have a look at it. Pretty strong activity here. Good action amongst the development community here. It's all traded on against Bitcoin, and the bulk of it is 92% of it is on Bittrex. So that's why we're looking at it there. But if you want to do a little digging on this coin, there's certainly it's an interesting project. So let's go back here to the chart and have a look at it. So, again, so sometimes you're trying to get some sense of structure. Yeah, you could squeeze out a count here, but I'll typically start just working from absolute pivots, from dominant pivots. Well, I've got a pivot low here, and I've got a pivot high. Well, what does that show me? So it's almost like a reverse engineering. Could I make a case for a 1-2 here? Does that play? Well, yeah, sure, it definitely could. At this point, I don't know that I need to go through and work through all that, but if I call that a 1-2, and then potentially here I've got a 3, and maybe the A wave here is shaping up. It remains to be seen. But this has potential structure here. The fact that we've gone up to the -618 and we've had a little double top there's potential for this to be playing technically. So if we look at that, so immediate things we would do, we'd wick off the 1 high. I would be looking for a relationship between the 2 and the 4 for the next entry. So I'd pull from get my fib tool, and I'd pull from my 2 up to this double top 3 high here. Now it's not uncommon for a 4th. We know this is the high probability zone between the 38 and the 50. So if I look at this as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to complete this, and I've just started an A, B, C, ideally, I'd like to see more subdivision. So I would be looking for something along these lines. So I might get an ABC of that sort. But again, as I've mentioned many times, that the thing that we're seeing in crypto are these shallow C waves. So for me, that's not good enough for me to be a buyer there. So if I were looking at this coin as a potentially a new position, I'd want to see a little bit more subdivision. I'd want to see this. Let me put the wave on it so you get my idea. I'd want to see this kind of activity. I'd want to see, because given the range here, this seems too small, too incomplete as a potential A, B, C. Even though it's there, I think that's likely just the A wave. I'd want to see some sort of movement up here to challenge those highs and looking for it to fail, which is what a B wave is. So I'd want to see a push up here and see some resistance looking for the next opportunity down here. So if I can see that kind of roadmap, then I'm much more confident here buying down here at this 50. Here I've got my negative 23.6 algo target. Now it may not get there, right? So we see this all the time. We see that shallow C wave, and this would not be unreasonable here. So, you know, it's kind of a judgment call. It's too soon for me to be a buyer there, but if I see this kind of action and we can get some subdivision here into that C wave to give me potentially a 5-wave subdivision, even if I had to go down to the 15-minute, I'd be looking for it to show me signs that it's completing. Now, I love it down here. That's just textbook. Can't get any better, because if we're going to stay impulsive, right? So we could be a buyer here if we get the opportunity, right? Looking for new highs. No reason to go beyond that wave 1. So you could get right there. So that gives you 7-1, and I'm not even really factoring in. I'm just to the algo target right here for a potential 5th. I wouldn't want to give it too much beyond that. I mean, you could make the case that you'd have to go down here because potentially you've got a diagonal. So if this is a wave 1, so you could allow for that to go as deep as the 65. I don't know that I'd want to give it that much room. I might be here, you know, looking for the wave 1 for that structural support prior resistance to offer the support here. That's where I love it right there. Now, you know, again, we got to wait and see. So this is your potential roadmap. But here, I like it. I'd be watchful of what's happening right there. Do I get this kind of pattern, which we've seen over, I don't know how many times I've shown it, where we see this kind of, well, I guess this would be down here, where we see this kind of thing happening in the 4th. It's just been incredibly common in crypto. Now, whether that continues in 2018 remains to be seen, but that has been the pattern that has been very consistent in crypto, at least throughout 2017. It remains to be seen. But, you know, so it's kind of it's a coin I like. This looks like a good project. I would certainly have it on my watch list. But again, I would love to see this. Whether we get there or not, you know, we don't know yet. But that's certainly one to be watching. And then I like that risk reward here. And, you know, if we bounce around here, there's opportunity to add again. So even if you took a stop here, if you were to, so let's say you took the stop there because it went through the wave 1 high. So you've taken a very small loser. So for me, I'd reevaluate. And then I'd look and see, okay, are we going down here to challenge the 618? If that's the case, I've got a diagonal. I still have that. I'd rather take the uncertainty here would have me rather to be out and look for a potential re-entry, because I know I can get well on that trade. I've got that same upside target. I don't need to give it too much beyond that. So then I get roughly 8.5 to 1. So even though I've taken a small loser here and eventually we still end up heading towards that target, I'd rather be out and just look, me personally, I'd rather take the small loser, let it establish, let it consolidate down here, or whatever structure we happen to see here. If I get a completed 5-wave, then I'd reevaluate for a second entry right there. Better upside, same low risk to the downside. That's how I would approach it. But, you know, I've got some people that are in it long here, so my suggestion is, you know, look for the potential push up here to challenge the highs. If it fails, then we're looking down here. Well, then we're looking down here to see if we can get a re-entry here. You know, it just, again, you can't be, it's all just potential roadmap. But certainly signs of technical trading are there. A strong project, you know, it's a matter of just, you know, what do you like to see? Wait for your trade, as I will often tell you. Wait for what you like to see. For me, this is not there yet, but it's certainly one I'm going to pay attention to. Okay, guys, I'll wrap it there.